お待たせいたしました。ただいまより記念講演を開始いたします。本日はスペース X 社スターリンクビジネスオペレーション担当シニアディレクターのローレン・ドライヤー様にご講演をいただきます。ドライヤー様は米国テキサス州ベイラー大学での機械工学の理学士号を取得され、テキサス A&M 大学で経営学修士を取得されました。スペース X 社においては、スターリンクの世界展開を監督し、グローバルライセンス管理、新市場での営業開始、企業顧客の関係管理、戦略的コネクティビティプロジェクト、危機管理など、重要な職務を16年以上にわたり担当されております。ドライヤー様はスペース X 社のロケット宇宙船であるスターシップの開発、製造、打ち上げ、軌道上でのミッション遂行を行う世界初の商業宇宙港であるスターベースの用地選定において重要な役割を果たされました。では以降は英語にて進行させていただきます。Allow me to introduce today's speaker, Ms. Lauren Dreyer, Senior Director, Starlink Business Operations, Space Exploration Technologies.Ms. Dreyer holds a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Baylor University and a Master of Business Administration from Texas A&M University. She has been in charge of overseeing the global expansion of Starlink service for more than 16 years. Her scope includes global licensing, launch of sales in new markets, enterprise customer relationship management, strategic connectivity projects, and crisis response.She played an integral role in the site selection for Starbase, one of the world's first commercial spaceports designed for orbital missions and where Starship development, manufacturing, and launch is taking place. Ms. Dreyer, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And as I start, let me express,on behalf of the SpaceX and Starlink team, our sincere thanks for the award that you have bestowed upon us. It is an honor to be able to connect people around the world. I've had the opportunity over the past 16 years at SpaceX to witness some incredible accomplishments by the SpaceX team, and over the past 3 years working on Starlink,to witness what connectivity can do to improve people's lives. Today, I hope to share a little bit with you about SpaceX, about Starlink, its applications, and mostly to share some of our users' stories about how they are using Starlink to expand boundaries, both epic and everyday, for where they work, live, play, and learn.Thank you. For the past 2 decades, SpaceX has been designing, building, testing, and launching rockets and advanced spacecraft. Let's take a look at some of the
highlights.Dragon and SpaceX contract ground stations.
SpaceX. 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome aboard Dragon. We got to see ISS out the window, which was pretty neat.The largest window ever flown in space.
never gets old watching that video for me. So as you saw in the video, SpaceX has 3 launch vehicles. Our Falcon 9, which can carry astronauts, whether private or government astronauts, to and from destinations like the International Space Station or others in orbit with the Dragon spacecraft, or satellites and its fairing. Its big sister is Falcon Heavy, which utilizes 3 Falcon 9 cores to make it one of the world's most powerful operational launch vehicles today. With the Falcon program, we've launched over 220 times, landed over 200 times, and conducted over 160 reflights of Falcon vehicles. The next generation vehicle, which you saw in flight testing there at the end of the video, is Starship. Starship will be fully reusable and carry humans to Mars and other destinations in our solar system. We've been applying all of the experience developing these rockets and spacecraft and operating them in orbit to design and launch Starlink. We've launched over 4,000 Starlink satellites today, providing high-speed, low-latency connectivity to places where it has been historically unreliable, unavailable, or unaffordable. Indulge me, if you will, in a bit of audience participation. Don't worry, you don't have to get up here, you don't have to leave your seats, but just a bit of thought. Think about the past 24 hours. How many times have you used the internet? Maybe a navigation system to get directions, homework for a child, looking up the answer, of course. Maybe it was a video call for work or for personal. Now look to your left and look to your right. Imagine you didn't have that connectivity, but your neighbors did. How would your life be different, personally, professionally, every day? As you heard the Secretary General say earlier, 1/3 of humanity remains offline, and many more users have only basic connectivity. Now, this is a complex problem. Not only do you need the possibility of connectivity to solve it, people need the means to afford connectivity, they need the knowledge to use it, they need the devices to connect to it. But I think we can agree that at minimum, to solve this problem, you need the possibility of connectivity. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the digital divide. The choice was to find connectivity or fall behind educationally or professionally. I read stories in the United States of children doing their homework in parking lots of fast food restaurants because that was the only place that they could get Wi-Fi connectivity. And in Malaysia, an 18-year-old girl climbed a tree to get better signal so she could take online exams. Starlink is expanding the possibility of where people can connect. As you can see here, we've got a stack of 60-ish Starlink satellites readying for integration into the Falcon 9 launch vehicle and then launching and on orbit just prior to deployment. Each launch that we perform of Starlink adds 1 terabit per second of capacity to the global constellation. And in 2023, we are launching a Starlink mission about every 8 days. So every 8 days, adding about a terabit per second of capacity. Starlink is the world's first low Earth orbit constellation to deliver broadband internet. Starlink operates at about 550 kilometers. Traditional satellite internet uses a single geostationary satellite operating at about 60 times that distance, or 35,000 kilometers. The time it takes a signal to reach a geostationary satellite and return to Earth results in higher latency, along the lines of 600 milliseconds. Because Starlink operates in low Earth orbit, by contrast, we are able to achieve the low latencies necessary to enable streaming, video calls, and even online gaming. We launched Better Than Nothing Beta, was the name of it, service in the United States in October of 2020, a little less than 3 years ago. We got our very first customer then. Today, we have over 1.5 million customers, and counting, in over 50 countries and on all 7 continents. Now keep in mind, the number of users of Starlink is actually higher, whether it is a residence that has multiple people. Here in Japan, I understand the average is about 2 people per household, or a school or community center connecting hundreds. The number of users of Starlink is significantly higher. So traditionally, if you wanted to deliver high-speed, low-latency connectivity somewhere, it required heavy equipment and a fairly intense project, lots of money, and many years. With Starlink, everything you need for connectivity is in a single box that can fit in a canoe or even a backpack. And expert assistance to set it up is not required. Everything you need comes in the box, including a Wi-Fi router. You plug it in,
6, 5, 4, 3,
set it up outside with a clear view of the sky, it self-orients, and a few minutes later you have connectivity. My colleague Ryan's 6-year-old son set his up. Starlink is also designed to be very rugged, whether it is operating in the extreme environment of Antarctica, where there's cold and wind, or supporting our landings on autonomous spaceport drone ships, where the rockets generate over 190,000 pounds of force. Starlink is designed to withstand the most rugged conditions. To support the landings, we operate a SpaceX Navy, in fact, many maritime vessels that support it and employees that go out. Prior to Starlink, we were buying the most expensive service that we could, and connectivity was barely acceptable to support the data and video for rocket landings. With Starlink, they've reported meaningful increases in that connectivity, regardless of where they are at sea, and also great quality of life improvements while they're deployed. Now, we didn't design Starlink for gaming anywhere, though many of our engineers do enjoy gaming. But by ensuring that Starlink can perform even in the intense situations required for gaming, and do so anywhere, it has benefits to every other application. The finale of Fortnite Chapter 3 used Starlink in several locations around the globe: Spain, Brazil, Scotland, and here in Japan. And it was used for over 100 hours of gaming and 50 hours of streaming. Throughout that, the average latency was 20 to 30 milliseconds. So Starlink can be used stationary at your home or office, but also either in a portable situation, such as if you take it camping, or in motion on a search and rescue vehicle over land, on trains. It can be used on boats anywhere in the globe, and it can also be used on aircraft to provide in-flight connectivity. One of the exciting ways Starlink can help reach many more people is through backhaul capabilities. We offer 2 levels of service. Priority service is ideal for wireless internet service providers, community Wi-Fi, and even ultra-rural communities. We also offer mobile backhaul. KDDI, here's one of our first customers of that. Thank you. And we are excited. This is actually a picture of one of their installations in December of 2022. I understand they did the first installation at Hatsushima. Hopefully I got that close to right. And hope to connect, I believe it's 1,200 towers to bring the urban experience to rural customers. So we're excited about what KDDI is doing with the technology. We also look forward potentially to other customers using it as well. So the internet does live here on Earth. You eventually have to have ground infrastructure to connect to it. But since September of 2021, every Starlink satellite that launched contains optical intersatellite links that enable satellite-to-satellite communications, making us much less reliant on localized ground infrastructure and enabling the ability to truly connect globally. So I understand a Japanese blogger decided to put us to the test after we launched service last fall here in Japan and took their Starlink to 3 remote islands to test it and declared at the end that it was a success, that anywhere in Japan you can see the sky, you can connect to the internet. So this provides some exciting prospects for backup capabilities in case a submarine cable goes down, for search and rescue, emergency response, and many others. So one of the things I'm most passionate about is the ability for Starlink to connect schools. Over 1/3 to 2/3 of schools, depending on the grade level, do not have internet connectivity around the world. There are great public and private initiatives to help close this gap. One of those is in El Salvador. They just released this video. We've also done connectivity projects for schools in Chile. This school is in a community of about 100 individuals, accessible only by water. Because of the mountainous region, there are no roads into it. Prior to Starlink, to get a signal, residents either leaned out of a window or more often took a boat into the sound to get connectivity. That included the students at the school. A Starlink was installed at this school, and in the off hours, it's able to provide community connectivity as well. In Mexico, Starlink is supporting 10 schools that have over 4,300 students collectively. And in Brazil, the Polaris program, which I'll speak a bit about later, is connecting 100 schools. In Rwanda, the Tony Blair Foundation has connected 50 schools and hopes to increase that by an order of magnitude. So when Starlink service is available in a country, there are many ways for it to benefit, including school connectivity programs. In addition, there are some wonderful initiatives to connect communities. In Mexico, the Internet para Todos program, Internet for All, connected 1 million people in just a few short months. 3,400 Starlinks were deployed by our customers who administer the program. Those communities have an average of 340 individuals per community, and thus 1 million people were connected. We've also done community connectivity projects throughout the US, Canada, and elsewhere, serving Indigenous communities and First Nations. There's some really cool things enabled by telehealth when using Starlink. One site uses Starlinks to provide both the upload of eye exam results when they're administered, and then they download the prescription needed so they can 3D print the glasses there on site for individuals. Starlink also enables ultrasound connectivity from anywhere, enabling new means of communicating with experts. The Polaris program is connecting clinics through the St. Jude's network in Peru, Chile, Brazil, and here in the Philippines. You may recognize some of the faces there, although they're covered by masks. Those are some of the crew members you may have seen in the video to start. Those were astronauts who flew as part of the Polaris program. But in addition to trying to advance human spaceflight abilities, they are also working here on Earth to reduce childhood cancer and also provide connectivity where it's needed. In this case, they took a Starlink to a clinic serving children with cancer in the Philippines, which is enabling doctors to communicate with each other, more research to occur, and also helping bring some joy and reduce suffering of patients. So Starlink can support search and rescue as well. Imagine for a moment, you and 3 friends are sailing between the Galapagos and French Polynesia. You're a little over halfway into your 3,100 nautical mile journey. And you hit a whale. Your sailboat is sinking. You put out a distress signal via your Iridium Go and enter the lifeboat. Who do you think comes to your rescue in that case? Well, in this case, the first people to arrive was actually another sailboat. 10 recreational boats had been in the vicinity for a race. They happened to have Starlink on board, and they began communicating and organizing via Starlink, using Facebook and WhatsApp to identify where the life raft was. They were able to rescue the 4 sailors and gave a big thanks to Starlink as part of that. Now, I think the Coast Guard would have eventually responded as well. They did receive the distress signal, but in this case, the people that were able to get there first used Starlink, which is pretty incredible. We hadn't even imagined this sort of application of Starlink before we heard the story. But upon hearing it, we launched a plan to better serve this community and other similar users. It's always exciting to see how our users are putting Starlink into work. So emergency response is a really interesting application of Starlink. In this picture here, you can see some folks in Australia responding to floods. That's a high-performance Starlink box they have there, a bit bigger than the other one we saw. And they are carrying it. They happen to already have a Starlink on hand and were able to take that immediately into the flooding. That's not the only case. In response to wildfires in the United States, flooding in Germany, cyclones in New Zealand and Vanuatu, and the terrible volcano in Tonga, Starlink has been used to establish connectivity for both first responders and those organizing the overall response, but also to allow people to connect with their friends and family and let them know that they are safe. Now, in many of these cases, Starlink was not already on site and had to be brought in. You can imagine in a time of an emergency or crisis, one of the things that becomes very challenging is logistics. So the best possible scenario is when someone already has in a community Starlink on hand, and they can go through that very short 15-minute or so setup process to establish connectivity, or to have it on their rescue vehicles to take it on the go. Here in Japan, I understand a very innovative use of Starlink was organized by KDDI and others. There was a landslide which cut off supply lines to a community. And I unfortunately don't know all of the details, but understand that using autonomous vehicles and the Starlink connectivity, they were able to organize weekly deliveries of supplies. As a mom, I can tell you, if you cut off the grocery store and my access to diapers, milk, formula, things like that, I would have been in quite a panic and quite thankful had something like this been available in such a situation. So kudos to those who leveraged Starlink to provide that vital service. And as I think was spoken about earlier, Starlink was used and is being used in Ukraine. This video is of a community that was liberated after a time of occupation by the invaders, during which they had been cut off from all communication, so their friends and family didn't know their fate.
А ви дозвонили сьогодні вперше?
Да, до дітей.
Дуже
До
дякую.
дітей?
Да.
А де ваші діти?
В Ірпіні, ну вони часто
Ну, Ірпінь ще знаєте.
А покажіть, будь ласка, їх.
Це наш синок.
Добрий день, український свідок.
Так, це він там западний.
Зрозуміло.
Хто де у нас, хто де.
З донькою розмовляла, пробувала зв'язатися з сином. Зв'язок – це багато чого значить.
I heard a lot of moving stories about Starlink use in Ukraine and continue to hear so. But in this case, the backstory to it was as the community was liberated, they set up lines for bread and for communication using Starlink. And overwhelmingly, people lined up to call their friends and family using Starlink. And for the hundreds of SpaceX employees that responded to support getting connectivity into Ukraine and making sure the free flow of information continued. That was incredibly moving. You saw there at the end, she said communication means a lot. And it certainly hit home when I heard that story. So I've shared some stories from our users and hope you enjoyed those. But really, there's no better way than to let our users tell you themselves how they are using Starlink.
Yeah, this is crazy. A lot of people don't realize this, but
It was now mounted.
These little dish sits outside.
Keep an eye out for penguins.
Winds, you name it.
Jonah, what's under you?
Myself, roaming.
Got my pole-mounted Starlink here.
I do. A Starlink in the box.
What? I'm taking permission.
Satellite Wi-Fi right here. We're going to be using in emergency situations when people need to communicate.
In the middle of nowhere, I'm playing on my computer, off of a battery, online on the Starlink.
Our users amaze us every day, so I'm excited to see what new applications they come up with next. Thank you very much for your time today. Congratulations to all of the other award winners. Thank you again on behalf of the SpaceX team for our award, and it was a pleasure to be able to share some of this with you today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ryer. 皆様、ドライバー様に今一度大きな拍手をお願いいたします。Now please return to your seat. Thank you very much. これをもちまして第55回世界情報社会電気通信日の集い記念式典を終了させていただきます。本日は誠にありがとうございました。なお本日の式典また記念講演の模様を後日日本 ITU 協会のホームページに公開いたします。どうぞご覧ください。改めまして受賞者の皆様、本日はおめでとうございます。受賞者の皆様が退席されますので、今一度盛大な拍手を持ってお送りください。